We're a nonprofit advocacy group for the St. Johns River.
And our mission is to help protect the river.
Hello, welcome once again to the St. Johns Riverkeeper Show, the most exciting 30 minutes on public access television. I used to use that, Lisa, by the way, that line, and nobody has questioned me on it, so it must be the most exciting on public access. My name is Jimmy Orth. I'm the Executive Director of St. Johns Riverkeeper, and I'm here with my co-host and your St. Johns Riverkeeper, Lisa Reineman.
Hello, happy to be here once again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while.
But I'm glad to have Lisa on here today because a lot of issues have transpired in the last several months. It seems like there's never a shortage of threats to the St. Johns River. And we'll talk about some of those, but we'll also talk about some of the fun things that are coming up also. There's some ways for you to get involved and help, some educational opportunities to learn about how to be river friendly and help do your part to help protect the river. But first, Lisa, I always like to kick off the show and give folks out there that may not be familiar with Riverkeeper a little bit of information about us, what we do, who we are. So if you could give people a little background.
Most definitely, be happy to. We're the St. Johns Riverkeeper. We are an independent voice for the St. Johns. We're a membership-based organization. We really empower our members to give the St. Johns a voice. I travel all over the state, go up to D.C., giving the river a voice where she does not have one. And so we focus on many things, advocacy as well as celebration of the river, educational, some great educational programs with our new education director, Jenny Busey, as well as focusing on investigations. If there's something you see that's treating our river badly or something just doesn't look right, give us a call, send us an email, get onto our website, our Facebook page, and we'll investigate it for you. And really then focus on policies. We want to make sure the policies that we have in place are as protective as they can be, and they're not going to undermine the protections in the river and our environment as we love it.
Yeah, and one thing that people don't realize, Lisa, as you know, when we talk to groups all over the city and all over Northeast Florida, a lot of people have the misconception that we're a government agency or that we're funded by the government, and we're not. We're actually a privately funded organization. We're independent. That's what Lisa said. We're an independent voice for the river. We're funded by support from you, the community. We are a membership-based group, so we encourage you to join and become a member. We have variety of membership levels to suit your economic ability to support us. And we also are supported by businesses and foundations and fundraising events that we do. So we don't get any support from government, but what we try to do is work with government and also hold government accountable.
Exactly.
And in a lot of cases, our laws are not either being implemented or enforced effectively, and we try to make sure that they are, or in some cases that the laws are not sufficient enough.
Exactly.
And that's where we work also, like Lisa said, on policy, trying to make sure. And then, yeah, our education, I'm just really proud of the work we're doing with education. A lot of people don't realize all the work we do in the schools with teachers and students. And also outreach. We have a great outreach director who is working out in the community, doing all kinds of fun events to get adults involved, and we offer boat trips and all kinds of things. And you can find out a lot about this on our website. You can join on our website and learn about all the upcoming events that we're offering and all the ways to get involved. But first, the main priority of a Riverkeeper group is to be an advocate for the St. Johns, and that is one of Lisa's primary roles. Lisa's kind of the face of the organization and heads up the efforts to make sure that the river is protected, and there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, and something we struggle with every day is looking at the individual issues, the permits that are going through, the activities, the development, the different things that are taking place, but also the policies. We're getting near the legislative session in Tallahassee, and while we don't spend a lot of time with the session, we are tracking and working with different allies to make sure that the current policies that are in place aren't undermined. Unfortunately, there's been a rolling back of environmental regulation in the last 2 sessions, and we basically, our legislature, they've undermined 40 40 years worth of environmental regulations, and we've got to stop. We were able to hold some more ground last year working with the Florida Conservation Coalition, working with Sierra Club, Audubon, Florida, and others, but we got to make sure that our elected officials understand our environment is important. Our river is important to the economic vitality of the state, and every year you've got other groups and lobbyists and industry groups trying to undermine those protections, and then you have to deal with that through the rulemaking process. So it keeps us very busy, keeps us traveling a lot to go to these meetings and make sure we're in the right conference room, the right boardroom, the right hearing at the right time. And a lot of times we need our members to go with us, and so that's a great opportunity if folks want to get involved to sign on as a member, get our email updates, so we have an opportunity for all of us to go give the river a voice. We can do it collectively.
That's right. Well, and you know, a lot of the changes that are being proposed or have been made in Tallahassee have been done under the guise of, you know, we're trying to stimulate economic activity, consistency, making sure rules are consistent across the board, or trying to expedite the permitting process to streamline it, as usually a word that's often used. And those all sound good. But the problem is, in the process, what we've seen, our experience is that during that process, there were actually weakening environmental protections.
Exactly.
And it's not necessarily leading to economic growth.
No.
That, in our opinion, that protecting the environment, having a clean and healthy river and clean and healthy environment in Florida, that is really going to be an economic driver for our state. We're, as a tourism-based state, we are so dependent on the health of our environment, and obviously that's something that has sustained our economy for generations and will in the future too, as long as we take care of it.
Exactly, and that's the thing, you said it, efficiency is good. We're supportive of efficient, effective programs to protect our environment, because that is what drives people to want to visit to Florida. That's what drives people to want to live in Florida. We're here because we love water, we love our state, we love what it offers us. But if we allow the industry lawyers and lobbyists to get in and drive this consistency effort, what we're seeing is that they're surgically implanting loopholes and allowing groups to get off the hook for putting these protections in place. And that's something that we have to stop. Consistency, efficiency, that's all good. We want to focus on putting, you know, the efforts in protecting the environment. Loopholes are bad. We can't have that happening. And that's why we're spending a lot of time looking at all these things coming through to ensure our members should ensure our natural resources, that the protections are going to be protected themselves.
Yeah, well, and you look at, you know, I was looking at some economic data not too long ago about two of our most important pieces of environmental legislation that were enacted in the early 70s, the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. Since that time, since I think Clean Water Act was 1972, that we have seen tremendous expansion of economic growth in our economy in the United States, and GDP has you know, I can't remember how many times over it's increased, but our GDP, our gross domestic product, has increased. The economic vitality of this country we've prospered during a period of time when we've had stronger, more stringent regulations to protect water quality. And what we've seen is a lot of water bodies that were once just cesspools that have actually been revitalized. And some of them, like the St. John's, aren't completely healthy, but we've come a long way from the 70s, for sure.
We've come a long way, and it's very interesting because companies, industry, utilities, they celebrate the fact that when we push them, when we put pressure on them to meet their obligations in the Clean Water Act, they celebrate that. They share that with their customers. However, every year there's focuses and there's attacks on trying to undo those protections and the enforcement of. And so, and it's due to cost. It's cheaper sometimes not to do the right thing. But we also all know that it's less expensive to protect our water bodies than try to restore them at a later date. And we all pick up the price tag. The polluters put up the price tag. Taxpayers, you know, when you have to put a restoration project in place, we all pay. It's much more efficient and effective and inexpensive to protect these waterways in the first place.
Right. Well, one of the issues that's happening right now is with how we distribute water in this state. It's called the consumptive use permit. If you want to use a lot of water, then you have to go and get a permit from the water management districts. And right now there's an effort to, what they're calling is making the process consistent among
Yes.
all of the water management districts in Florida. But what we're seeing as a result, though, are proposals to extend permits to make them longer. So in other words, you might get a permit for 30 years. I've even heard, some legislators propose permits in the past 50 years,
Right,
in some circumstances. Also, less review, less chance to revise and modify those. And what we're finding, we actually just saw an article in the Tampa Bay Times this week that these aquifer models are really not very accurate in determining.
Right.
And what we're finding is that actually nutrients, they leach down into the aquifer much faster than we thought they did. We're also finding that water flows through the aquifer a lot faster, and that we really don't know that much about what we're doing, yet we continue to issue these permits, and we lock people in for longer periods of time. It gives us less flexibility as we learn more about our aquifer to adapt and make those changes that may be necessary to protect it.
Well, and that's what we're finding. And scientists at the district, at the water management district levels, at the DEP, we know a lot about our aquifer. We know a lot about our systems, our waterways, and how they're all connected. But we also still have a lot to learn, and we have to build on that. And things change based on rainfall, based on consumption. There's some that say we've already over allocated our aquifer. And that's not good for business. If we don't have water to allocate to future uses, and that could put a stop to growth in Florida. No one wants to see that. But the healthiest way to do that is to have strong protections in place, and one of them is requiring water conservation. And right now there's a move to incentivizing water allocation by giving you longer permits, by, again, stripping away that flexibility for the regulators to go in and address real issues, real concerns with real time. And that's something, consistency is good, but as long as you don't undermine the protections for regional differences. I also see this consistency effort being used to get more centralized control for water decisions. And there's a reason the water management districts exist, because there's regional differences. There has to be coordination. There needs to be that coordination, but at the same time, you can't have all that centralized control, and it's a real concern. The consistency movement we see is making it easier for utilities to get more water, no incentive to conserve, true incentives, nothing to conserve, and it's also taken away any flexibility for regulators, for the folks that are supposed to be protecting these resources, to react to real data.
And this is at the time when we may be reaching the limits of our aquifer.
Exactly.
That we need to be as cautious as we possibly can and be as judicious about how we allocate water, and yet we're doing the opposite. We're actually moving in a direction to allow people to get locked into permits for a longer period of time and possibly make it easier to get permits as well. So that's one of the issues that we're really concerned about. I know this is pretty technical sometimes, folks out there, and I apologize, but I think it's important they understand that some of the efforts that are taking place in Tallahassee, we have real concerns about the efforts of rolling back some of the protections and safeguards that have been put in place to help protect our waterways. Now, it wasn't perfect before, but we're actually going in the opposite direction and making it worse and not better. And that's our concerns, is we really feel like now is the time. We obviously have water quality problems throughout Florida. Of the 20%, only 20% of our streams and rivers have been assessed. In other words, we have enough data to know whether they're polluted or not.
Right.
Of that, 80% are considered to be impaired, meaning that they're polluted with some type of pollutant. And that's sad. And what we've seen is obviously algal blooms, fish kills throughout the state, red tide events. We saw an algal bloom in the Indian River Lagoon last year that lasted for over a year.
It's called the mega bloom. It was a really nasty algae bloom.
And scientists still are trying to figure out what happened. They don't know. Well, we know that nutrients obviously contribute to that, nitrogen and phosphorus, sewage and fertilizer. But there's a lot we're still learning, and there's also a lot of problems that we still have yet to address, and yet we're and right now in Tallahassee trying to undo some of the protections that are in place.
Well, and that's something, the Department of Environmental Protection, our state agency, that's supposed to protect these waterways, they admit they do not have the regulatory stick to protect our waterways from nutrient pollution that's causing the algae, the too much nitrogen, too much phosphorus. And that's something at the same time, while they know they don't have enough resources either financially or just from a regulatory perspective to protect these waterways, they're also at the same time trying to put less stringent protections in place. So it's like, if you need more of authority to do so, you think you'd be working hard to get these protections in place, but we see it the other way around. And the environment's really been hurt by the sluggish economy, because these are changes that industry and utilities and others that want to use more water, they want to have more flexibility of their own to put their wastewater into our waterways and send the pollution out. They've been wanting to make these changes for years, decades. They've probably been fighting this fight for as long as the permitting process, the Clean Water Act's been in place for 40 years. The economy gave them a tool, and they tied that these regulations were job killers, and we know they're not. They're actually job creators. Our St. Johns River alone creates so many jobs at 310 miles of its length, both in tourism, fishing, recreation, property taxes. Folks can living aside, it really drives the property taxes in Duval County. So it's something you can't ignore. It's something that's vital to our economy, and that's something we just have to collectively have a strong voice with our elected officials.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we often don't focus on the cost of pollution too, because pollution costs our economy dearly.
It does.
And we see that whenever we have these red tide events, like on the Southwest Coast, and it's a big tourist destination and people can't go out and swim, or the St. Johns is having a massive algal bloom, or the Caloosahatchee River, or the Santa Fe. This all kills tourism.
Exactly.
It hurts our opportunities for recreation, and harms our quality of life, frankly.
I was out on the river the other day with a retired tugboat operator. But we were talking about the major algae blooms we had in St. John's in 2005, 2010, 2011. And he was comparing his business then to what it normally would be in a typical summer. And it had a dramatic impact, because when you have the algae, people don't go out in their boats, so they don't have boat issues, so he didn't have the business to go out and get them. And you hear stories like that time and time again from folks that go kayaking tours, other boating tours, folks that have businesses on the water where people don't want to go and hang out when there's algae out there that's not only smelly and not pleasant to be around, it's also harmful for your health.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There's a real health concern too, because some of these algal blooms have toxins that they emit that can cause real serious respiratory problems. Can even kill wildlife if your dog drinks the water, or livestock even in some cases.
Big problem with livestock, which is interesting because a lot of times the manure from the livestock is driving the algae, so it's kind of that circle.
Yeah.
But it's a big problem, and that's something, Silver Springs is we're working hard to protect Silver Springs. It's a major provider of fresh water to the St. Johns River, and it's extremely important not only because of its impact to the St. Johns, but also it's a national landmark. It's the first tourist destination in the state of Florida, and right now the pollution is so bad, all of the polluters would have to reduce their pollution footprint by almost 80%. And that's just, it's amazing we let it get that far out of hand, because there's no way to turn back the time on that. And they're still looking at adding additional nutrients, additional pollution by potentially approving a cattle farm there in the spring shed. And that's an issue I know we've talked about on this show before, but it's continuing to have life, and we're continuing trying to fight to make sure no additional pollution is put into that system. And most importantly, we've got to start taking it out.
Yeah, and as Lisa mentioned, the Department of Environmental Protection last year determined that to restore the health of Silver Springs, you'd have to reduce nutrients that are going in, nitrogen and phosphorus from fertilizer and manure and sewage,
septic tanks, stormwater,
by almost 80%. To restore its health. That's existing loading that's going into these water bodies. And so obviously we can't afford any additional loading, and that's exactly what this issue about this cattle farm. It's called Adena Springs Ranch is the name of it. They want to put, we've talked about it before, but just in case you haven't heard about it, the owner wants to put, it's somewhere around 15,000 cattle in the spring shed, which is the area that surrounds the land that surrounds Silver Springs, and have a grass-fed beef cattle farm. Well, a lot of people are supportive of grass-fed beef. It's supposed to be healthier for you, but the problem is the wrong place for this type of operation. That it's been acknowledged that it's very sandy soils and karst limestone environment underneath, where basically it leaches really fast, so nutrients can leach down quickly down into the groundwater. It also is going to require a lot of water. Originally, the applicant, the Adena Springs Ranch, they wanted over 20 million gallons of water a day, and then they had some negotiations with the Water Management District, and then they finally applied for over 13 million gallons of water a day, which was more than the entire city of Ocala uses on a daily basis. Well, there's been a lot of opposition, public opposition, so now recently there was some changes to that permit, correct?
There were, and they actually just recently reduced their water ask to 5.3 million gallons of water a day. So much better than the 20 number they started with, but it's still a lot of water in a spring shed that already has experienced a dramatic flow reduction. And quite frankly, I think the water quantity issues really was overshadowing the water quality issue, because back to the nutrient pollution, this will have a negative impact on the pollution problem that's already out of control in the Silver Springs and Silver River, and then the reduction of water from the aquifer that will have an impact to the flow of the Silver Springs and the Silver River will actually make the nutrient problem worse, because it's going to reduce the flushing capacity of the river. So it's a recipe for disaster, and we're opposed to that permit. We've been very vocal about that opposition, and we'll continue to fight for answers.
Yeah, and one of the things, like you said, I mean, there's a flow problem. We've seen dramatic flow reduction over the last 50 years or more, actually, at Silver Springs. We've seen an incredible increase in the nutrients, which has resulted in the fish biomass in Silver Springs has reduced by over 90%. It's just not it's not like it once was.
No,
if you ever remember, as a kid going and seeing it, just like you described it as an aquarium, looking through the glass bottom boat, and you just saw this unbelievable array of fish. A lot of those fish are no longer there anymore.
They're gone, and it was heartbreaking. I took my 2 young boys to Silver Springs in March of 2012 last year. And I was expecting to see somewhat, I expected to be a reduction in fish, because I've read the reports, I heard the data, but it was heartbreaking to see what I saw. You saw more clumps of algae floating underneath the glass bottom boats than fish. My kids were so excited to see a gar floating through, but we were literally hunting for fish sightings. And it's heartbreaking. They had a great time. I'm happy they did. They didn't have the memories I had. But we really, if it continues to go in the direction it's in, it's not going to be an attraction, because people aren't going to go just to see clumps of algae floating around.
Right.
Good news is the state is moving to make it a state park. I think there's some advantages to that. Hopefully ownership will drive them to want to do more protections. But I hope it's just not trying to soften some of the opposition to this permit, because we've got to make major changes. And that's one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of band-aid approaches to all of our water issues in our state. And we can't continue to do a band-aid approach. We can't continue to try to buy our way out of it without putting protections in place on why we have these problems in the first place. We have to make sure that pollution, is not going in to these waterways.
Right. Well, one of the big problems is, we've had obviously some serious economic downturn in our state, high unemployment. What we're going to see, we're starting to see a recovery, and as we see that recovery, it's going to be more growth and development. We've almost had no growth and development over the last several years, which has, I guess, in some ways, for the environment, it's been good, because it's given it a little bit of a reprieve from additional, but we have still, during that period of time, not been able to get a handle on the existing pollution problems. As growth and development continues again, every person that moves into the watershed of some water body, they're going to add additional impacts, and it's going to add to the pollution problem. If we don't put some serious effort behind trying to get a handle on these pollution problems and reduce them, this is going to spiral out of control and only get worse. And it's going to be much more expensive cleanup process in the end for us also. And it's going to hurt our state economically if our waterways continue to decline. So it's imperative that we get a handle on this now.
Well, and if you wait till the damage is done, the cleanup efforts fall on the backs of the tax holders. They fall on the backs of citizens, and you don't get an equal share by the folks, the industries, the polluters are causing the problem in the first place. And that's why you have the lobbyist community for the other side working so hard to undermine these protections in place. And they're not job killers. There's no evidence of that. I've never seen a study that ties it in. If anything, again, people want to live, they want to come, they want to work around beautiful places and where they can go out fishing on the weekends, they can go out sailing, they can take their kids swimming in the springs. If we don't have those things, people aren't going to want to stay in a hot place where they don't have access to water.
Right.
And so we've got to work collectively to prevent it and make sure we're not putting an undue burden on our kids and their grandkids.
Yep. And so on this Sedina Springs Ranch issue, if you're concerned about it, you can go to our website. Our website's up here when you see this the sign up here again on the screen. There, it'll have our website, stjohnsriverkeeper.org. And you can go to our website, and we have lots of information about this issue with an update of where we are with the issue, how you can contact the Water Management District and submit comments on this issue. There's a lot of other issues too. I'd encourage you to go. We've got lots of information on our website to keep you up to date because there's a lot more issues happening. This is just, I think, one that is so emblematic of our water quality problems throughout the state. Another one that's also emblematic is Wekiva River. Wekiva River is a major tributary of the St. Johns. Just like Silver Springs, it's really one of our natural treasures in Florida. It is one of only 2 federally designated wild and scenic rivers in Florida. Actually, it's the only one for the entire length of it is designated wild and scenic. And it also is one of the most protected. There's been 2 major pieces of legislation that have been passed to help protect the Wekiva, yet it's facing the same problems. Increases in nutrient and pollution and decreases in flow from the springs that feed that river. And that river, as I mentioned, is a major tributary of the St. Johns also. So that on February 16th, Governor Graham and the Florida Conservation Coalition are having an event, Speak Up Wekiva, and it'll be at Wekiva Springs State Park. That information's on our website. We're hoping to have a big rally. It's similar to what we did last year for Silver Springs. We had a rally in Silver Springs and hope to get a lot of people to start raising awareness about these pollution problems and get more people engaged and involved.
Well, and exactly. You know, I look forward to that event. We'll take my family. And the thing is, once these resources are damaged and gone, they're gone forever. You know, we have to make sure we're doing what we can, because if our state doesn't have the tools to protect them, and if they don't have the tools to restore them, you know, what do we do? And we can't be left with we don't have any options on the table. So it takes all of us working together. Please come visit our website. There's lots of data, lots of articles that you can read across the state. You know, this is not just something we're working on. We're doing it collectively. Log on. If you need more information, email us, let us know. We'll be happy to try to bring more on this show, as well as, you know, come see us. You know, we have to get more people involved.
Well, and on a happy note, you know,
Yes.
we'll talk about something. This weather has been great. It doesn't feel like winter.
No,
it's a
it does
great
not.
time to get out. And even, you know, if we're going to have some more cold weather, we know that before it ends. But this is a great time to get out and explore the St. Johns. One thing that I would encourage everybody to do is right now we have really popular 2-day eco-heritage boat trips. And those are in April. And you can go to our website and sign up. They're between Sanford and Palatka. We travel, spend the night in a hotel in Astor, Florida. It's a great way to learn, to really experience the true essence of the St. Johns and the beauty of the St. Johns. That section of the river between Palatka and Sanford is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, it's amazing.
And so I'd encourage you to go check that out on our website and consider signing up. We have incredible speakers. We stop at places like Blue Springs State Park and Pontoon Island. It's just we have had people that have told us they travel the world, and this is one of the best vacations they've ever had, experiencing the river, because I think people are really surprised at how beautiful the St. Johns is, and you know, what a treasure it really is. So I'd encourage you. There's a lot of other events too on the website. We have coming up, March is actually St. Johns River Month. The mayor of Jacksonville has by proclamation declared March as St. Johns River Month, and there's a lot of activities planned and a lot of ways that people can get involved. And so we hope that you'll go to the website and learn about ways you can attend these events, and also, like we said, be river friendly. We have lots of tips on what you can do to help protect the river. And we're almost up with time. You have a few more parting thoughts? Or?
You know, I think I love Florida, and just to see these gorgeous sunsets we've had on the St. Johns River, it's been phenomenal. And so I forget it's January. I can't believe we're, that it's early, early in the year, but we're blessed to have a gorgeous river. It has challenges, but we're here to work on them and look forward to working with everyone in the community as well.
Yeah, so get out there and enjoy it, and also help us protect it. Thank you so much for joining the show. We're a nonprofit advocacy group for the St. Johns River.
And our mission is to help protect the river.